Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this one I wanted to do the official tutorial from Microsoft documentation for setting up multi-factor authentication to make your user accounts more secure. Now multi-factor authentication, you should read up what it is. It's at least you gotta have two different types of authentication to be considered as a multi-factor. Like if you have the password is something you know, okay, and then say you have a smartphone, that is something you have. If you try biometrics, that is something you are. So those are the three main types of factors that you can use. Now if you have if you implement two different passwords to log into your Azure, that would not be considered as multi-factor because you are using the same factor twice. So keep that in mind when you are thinking about multi-factor authentication. Now there are multiple ways that you can enable multi-factor authentication within Azure, but a recommended way is to use conditional access policy. And right over here, if you look at the create a conditional access policy, it clearly states the recommended way to enable the user and use Azure multi-factor authentication is with conditional access policy. Now this is something that does not come with the default Azure Active Directory. So let's just do a quick search on Azure AD plans. Let's see if we can figure out the plans and make sure which plan at least you need. Go to pricing, and if you look at the Azure AD plan, there are 4 different plans, right? You have the free Office 365, which is the basic plan, or used to be called the basic plan, the premium P1 and premium P2, and we are looking for the conditional access policy. Let's just search for conditional access. Okay, so conditional access, you see here we cannot have anything, so this is where you start getting the conditional access policy, which would be in the P1 plan. Okay, if you have P2, you have everything as well. So just remember that you need at least a P1 plan. If you want to save some money, you can stick to that. Okay, that will save you $3 per user a month right now, and you can use this feature. So let's come back over here. So in this tutorial, what the 3 main tasks that we're going to do, we're going to create a conditional access policy to enable Azure multi-factor authentication, or MFA, for a group of users, and then we're going to configure the policy conditions that is going to request the user for MFA, and we will test that it is really doing that. And third thing that we're going to do, we're going to test the MFA processes user. Okay, that's pretty much this to kind of once we configure, we will test. Okay, then we'll end the video. Now one important thing for the lab, you gotta have a global administrative privilege to be able to do that. And as I said, you gotta at least have a P1 Azure AD Premium P1 trial license or a regular premium license that's available to you. Okay, and let's get started. So one thing, this diagram, I really like how this diagram is shown over here. Now Azure can look at multiple different things, and what they call it as signals. They can take a look at your users and their location, their device types, applications, and real-time risk. All of that they can, when they're trying to log in, they can evaluate these signals, and based on the evaluation, you can figure out whether you can directly allow access, doesn't have to go through MFA, or you can, based on what application and the risk, you can say, okay, I will let you log in, but you have to go through a MFA process, and then you can give access to different apps and data. Okay, so over here you can go through this route where you do not need any MFA. So, and over here you do need MFA, and over here you can block up access. So the conditional, you can think of, these are like if and then statements that we create. So if it's a device that meets a certain policy and it meets our requirement, let's allow. okay, if the device is logging in from an unknown location, okay, I can still let it access my account, but let's enable the MFA for that. Okay, so all of that conditions you can enable, and based on the conditions outcome, you are going to record the MFA. All right, so let's see if we are missing anything from here before we start the lab. I think we are good. So the other thing you need is really the Azure portal, and we're gonna create a new policy for the MFA pilot. Okay, and before we do anything, let's go to the Azure Active Directory. Let's see if we have any groups that we can use. We have one group that I used for the SSPR, which is single self-service password reset group. I can create another group real quick, so I can call it MFA test group, right? And the group description, I don't really need it. And then members, I can add couple members in there, maybe just one member is fine, or you know what, yeah, I can add one member. Just put the SSPR guy that I have created previously, who can reset his own password. I'm gonna get that person, and actually let's select two of them, SSPR. I have another person as well, so I'm gonna select both of them. So two members selected. I'm gonna create this group. So the conditional access policy, we're gonna test it on that group, and I would highly recommend that you test the policy on a group, and don't lock out your own global administrative account while you are doing this multi-factor authentication work. Okay, so we have our test group. So the next thing that we want to do, we want to test the policy, and before we do anything, we just go over here. I just want to go to the license. If you have not enabled the premium P1 or P2 feature, okay, you can come down over here and you can go to the license feature. Okay, here it will tell you whether you have this license enabled or not. Here it says, hey, the current license plan for this Azure AD organization is Azure AD Premium P2, and then you have a bunch of stuff, and it's actually telling us what are the features that are available to me. Okay, since I had this Azure AD Premium P2. Okay, you can go back to all products, and you see that the Azure AD Premium P2 is enabled. So you can, if you don't have this enabled, you can come over here, just click on add or buy, and from here you can choose the product that you like. Okay, let's come back over here. So I have shown that I am a global administrator. There's the other thing that was a prerequisite, so you have to be global admin to do this work. I have the license that I need, so I should be pretty good to start our conditional access policy work, right? So let's see where to do that work. Alright, that feature for the conditional access policy comes really under security. So on this blade I don't have a search button, which I kind of hate, but here is your security. So if you go down to the security, you should be able to see some new blades that would show up here. So security is the main blade. Here are more things that you can do inside the security blade of Azure Active Directory, and it's really broken down in three main parts. Okay, first is the protect. You can protect your environment using conditional access policy. Identity protection that comes with Premium P2 does not have this service available for Premium P1, and then Security Center is something that is also available here. You can manage, you can take a look at the identity secure score. You can assign, you can create named locations, and you can use those locations when you are creating your conditional access policy and say, hey, these locations I trust, or maybe this location we don't trust. You can use them. You can configure authentication method and the MFA. So this MFA is for like globally global MFA. So we're not gonna stick here for this particular lab. We will enable MFA using a conditional policy. So to do that, and you can also have a report for the risky user, risky sign-ins, risky detections. So we'll go to the conditional access for this particular lab, and here we're going to configure a policy. Now here, if you read about it, what is conditional access? Conditional access gives you the ability to enforce access requirements with specific conditions occur. Let's take few examples. So they're giving us two examples. When a user is outside the company network, what control? They are required to sign in with multi-factor authentication. Now that kind of makes sense, right? If you are, say you are already in a physical location, so you're already in a subnet, in a private network, so you probably don't need a second factor authentication because you probably have already provided your username and password to get to the network. But if you are accessing your services from outside the company, then maybe from somebody's home network, then you probably want to enable another factor authentication just to increase security. The other example, when users in the managers group sign in. So managers, they probably got higher level of privileges, so we want to make sure those accounts are more secure, and they're required to be in tune with compliant with domain joint device. So we just want to make sure their device, anything they have, they are meeting the company policy. Okay, and here's a brief guide to create a policy. Click new policy, specify policy condition and controls, and when you are done, don't forget to enable the policy, and that's important. So let's get started with a new policy. And in this document they said to call it a new policy as MFA pilot, so I'm going to call the same thing, call it MFA pilot. So three things that you need to configure here: the assignments, cloud app or action, conditions. So once you define these three, then you also have to figure out, do the access control. What are you going to do when the conditions are met? Are you going to grant or not? So let's start with the assignments. Create users and groups. So you can also do include or exclude. So we're going to stick to the include mode here, and we do select users and groups. Okay, and then users and groups, and here it's going to give us another window, and I'm going to choose the MFA test group from there. Okay, then select. Okay, so now it has chosen one group where we're going to test our MF or conditional access policy. Now next, where are we going to apply the cloud apps or actions? Okay, here we're going to select an application, and we want to select an application. Here I'm going to search for Microsoft, or just say Azure, maybe Microsoft Azure Management. So that if you choose that one, that is used for the Azure portal, so I'm going to choose that one. So when these particular group, any user in this particular group, if they try to connect to Microsoft Azure Management, and here on conditions, I'm not configuring anything, I'm just saying these two. And then for grant, we'll say, okay, grant access, but require MFA. There is a require MFA. I'm just trying to find where it is. Grant access, require multi-factor. It was at the very first beginning, so I was having trouble. So user must complete additional security requirement like phone call or text. Okay, so once that is done, I'm gonna say select. So here in this condition, I didn't have to define any condition in this particular policy. If this particular user trying to access this cloud app, doesn't matter what the condition is, I want to grant access, but they have to go through multi-factor authentication. That's all I'm saying. So session, I don't have to deal with it either. So let's go and make sure that that's what they are doing over here. So here, users and groups, and configure multi-factor authentication. we are configuring user and groups, then cloud apps, then grant access, require multi-factor authentication. Okay, and here a couple things that that they have mentioned earlier as well. Set the enable policy toggle to on to make sure this policy is on. So here you see the enable policy could be either report only, on or off. So until you turn it on, this policy will not be enabled. So make sure you do this, and then you just click or create to create this policy. I see a warning sign. I'm just going to read it. It looks like you're about to manage your organization's security configuration. That's great. You must first disable security defaults before enabling a conditional access policy. Now, this is something I haven't seen this before. Must disable the security defaults. So I'm gonna try. Security defaults must be disabled to enable conditional access policy. So we gotta figure out what that is and go ahead and first disable the security defaults. So let's come over here. What are security defaults? Okay, and the security defaults look like they are under the properties section of your Active Directory, manage security default, and you gotta default the security setting. It may be a new feature that showed up. I have not seen this before, so let's just do that before we do anything. So let's maybe open up this in another blade, and let's go to Active Directory, unless it's open up it's opening up. So let's go to properties. So, and in this properties, security defaults, let's read it one more time. Properties, access management for Azure resources, enable security, manage security. Oh my god, that's so tiny. So let's come back over to manage security for. You see that? Who would know that you will have to come here and disable that first. Okay, they're saying security defaults is a basic security basic identity security mechanisms recommended by Microsoft. When enabled, these recommendations will be automatically enforced in your organization. Administrators and users will be better protected from common identity related attacks. So what they're saying, okay, you're taking control of your conditional access policy. To do that, you disable this first. So, and look at that, we love to understand why you are disabling the security features. So I'm going to say my organization is using conditional access. Okay, and then save it. So hopefully if it's there, I'm going to come back over here, and if I try to create, let me see if it's, I'm still getting the error. So it still does not know that I have already disabled that. So let's go back one more time over here, say okay. I'll just double click and redo the work that we have already done. Users and groups, select users and groups, then MFA test group, select cloud apps, include select apps, Microsoft, and then pick the Azure management, and then yeah, again, I kind of mentioned this before, don't lock yourself out. This policy impacts the Azure portal. Before you continue, ensure that you or someone else will be able to get back into the portal. Disregard this warning if you are configuring persistent browser session policy that works correctly only if all cloud apps are selected. So here, that's the reason I'm testing out this policy on a group of people and not everybody. Okay, so I'm good with that. Conditions, we didn't have to select anything. Grant, we're going to grant access, but we're going to enable the multi-factor authentication. Say select, and this time look at that, I don't have any warning message here at all. So I'm going to turn it back on, and voila, I'm going to create. So it's created this new policy like instantly. Successfully created MSA pilot. Policy will be enabled in a few minutes if you have enabled policy set to on. So state, you see that it's set to on. So in few minutes this policy should be enabled. So let's now do this, so now we know that this policy should be available. Let's look at the documentation a little bit more. So we have done everything that this documentation is saying, and here now next thing is just to test our policy. So if we try to log in with a user now, Azure must be asking for another verification method, so we have to register for something to register or to configure our MFA. Okay, and that's pretty much all that we need to do. So the last thing that we are going to do is test the MFA. So let's do just that. So let's open up a new private window, go to portal, and we know that there are 2 users in that MFA test group, and one of them I can come and get it from here. So let's try this one, this person. Put it in here and hit next. Let's put the password, and hit sign in. Oh, it says my password is incorrect. Okay, hopefully this would be the right password. Alright, so there we go. So here it's saying your organization needs more information to keep your account secure. And if you come back over here and if you look at the picture here, we have sent a notification and all that. So this, what it's doing, if you click on next, it will start the MFA process. Like it will take additional security. So I have to configure my MFA. So you can do it 2 method authentication, phone, or you can use a mobile app for your authentication. I'm just use authentication phone, and let's use one of the phones I have, and I'm just gonna pause the video because I don't want you to see my phone number. Okay, once I have put in my phone number, this is the box you would see. Again, I have this crazy window here just to avoid showing you my phone number, but once you just need to put your security code in here, and you just need to say submit. So let me just do that and I'll restart the video. There we go. So once I have done that, there was a verify button right over here where you have done right now. So once I did that, it says now verification is successful, and then what you have is your phone is now verified. So at this time you can hit done, and that's pretty much it. You have your verification, your MFA configured and should be working properly. Alright, now once I sit down, it's given me the screen back again, so I'm gonna say next. So now since I have gone through my MFA registration, now I'm logged in properly. Okay, so what I can do this time now, let's go back to this window over here, and what I wanted to do before we close the lab, so this document, it kind of ended right here, it didn't do anything more. What I really want to do, come over here and go down and go to the security back again, and I want to go to the MFA tag. Okay, and let's see, MFA diagnostic server setting, providers, fraud alert, account lockout. Click additional cloud-based MFA setting. So I'm just trying to figure out, there is one link I know that where you can go here. This is the link. So what I did, I came over here, I clicked on additional cloud-based MFA setting, and that's where I am, and it's by default it comes to the service setting. Okay, and if I click on the users in here, what you see that this is the overall MFA status. This is another place where you can enable your MFA for the enterprise, like globally. Okay, but this is what I have not used. So this is, I wanted to let you know that although over here it says that this user, my MFA, is disabled right here, we have used conditional access to enable the MFA. So it doesn't matter what it says here, you still do need MFA to access the Azure portal if you are this particular person. Okay. All right, with that note, I want to stop here, and we'll talk about this particular feature and how you can use this MFA from this view as well, maybe in a different video. But yeah, I'll give you this link as well. So do some practice with the conditional access policy and be comfortable. It's a very highly testable area, and there could be some labs there where they might ask you to go and create the conditional access policy. We didn't work on the named locations and stuff like that and risk, so you can also spend some time with those. If you like the video, please subscribe, leave your valuable comments to improve my videos, and if you're studying for an exam, good luck. Thank you.